The key to life is just to find out who you are, and if you're kinky, that's just how you're meant to be. We found a place on the Rev Mel Show where we can all be one perverted family.
Like the Village Voice, or like the Village Voice. And I was, looking through the classified ads, and I saw a little tiny ad. I mean, it was like little tiny ad, 2 lines, for fans of B&D, S&M, an organization, and a phone number. Mm-hmm. And so I called and spoke to a very deep-voiced lady, mm-hmm. Cynthia Slater, as it turns out. And she had, the previous year, founded the Society of Janus in San Francisco, which was the first organization specifically for het folks, mm-hmm. For BDSM het folks, this side of the Mississippi.
Was there other organizations for gay leathermen?
There were organizations, but they weren't educational at all. Mm-hmm. There were mostly social clubs, bike clubs, but there were no educational settings, mm-hmm. for gay male leathermen. Mm-hmm. So I went to this meeting. I remember the night very, very well. I walked in, and it was her living room, and she had cleared all the furniture out and stored it in a bedroom. And here were probably 30 people sitting on the floor with their backs to the walls all the way around the living room. Most of them in double knit. It was pretty grim.
Yeah, they didn't have spandex.
And heterosexual. Mm-hmm. And every time somebody knocked at the door, people were nervous that it was going to be the police to come and arrest everybody.
Wow.
I mean, the kind of anxiety about gathering was startling, and it made me sad.
Yeah.
But they were scared, by and large. I scared them when I walked in. They thought I was a cop. And sat down, and at the appointed hour, Cynthia, in her very deep Lauren Bacall voice, said, let's start by introducing ourselves to one another. Say as much or as little about yourself as you're comfortable with.
So it was a 12-step program for BDSM.
I suppose, but it wasn't about recovery.
Yeah.
It was about coming out, really. Did you know her? Did you ever meet her? And she said, I'll start with myself. And she said, hello, I'm Cynthia, and, talked a little bit about herself. And people would pass, didn't want to talk about themselves. Came around to me, and I said, hello, I'm Guy Baldwin. I'm a gay leatherman. I've been into BDSM since I was a teenager, blah, blah, blah. And people sort of looked around at me like I was from another planet. And they were suddenly very fascinated. Well, do you know about bondage? Yeah. Have you been tied up? Yes. Do you tie other people up? Yes. What do you use? Well, number 8 braided nylon rope is good. Or, we started talking about technique and about equipment and so forth. And it was the first time that heterosexual people were really interested in what I knew.
Wow.
And that felt really good, that I finally had some value to that population.
Did you think that this would happen?
No, I had no idea what would happen.
That is amazing, because it really bridges the gap to pansexual.
Well, yeah, I was the first gay man that showed up there, and all of a sudden I had a lot of information that the het folks were craving, really wanted hard, concrete information about how this stuff works, what you do, what does cock and ball torture really look like? You know,
What does it look like? No, just joking.
I'm sure you know
Ooh, yes.
what it looks like, and what does it mean? And there was a lot of. They asked me lots of questions.
So there was 30 people there?
About that, yeah.
And that's how big the Society of Janus was at that moment.
Right, and that was the founding group.
It is really amazing because you've got the Society of Janus, and here in Los Angeles, they had a group of the Society of Janus that was, from
the Southern California chapter of
Yeah.
Society of Janus.
and then you had
Pardon me.
Threshold, and then you had the Lyra Society, and you had all these other
Well,
things.
Threshold was born from the Society of Janus.
yeah.
A lot of people don't know
Yeah.
that. And the reason for that split was that the people in LA Janus wanted to play more and have play parties and so forth. And the people in Northern California Janus were interested in classes and education and outreach and that kind of support. So there was a real shift in a real difference in focus between the Northern and Southern California groups. Southern California group broke away and became Threshold.
Were you part of the Southern California Janus?
I was, because by then I was living down
Yeah.
here. I was teaching classes now and then for Janus in Southern California.
Why did you move down to California?
Because I fell in love.
And who did you? Oh, we have a chat question. Just a moment. We'll get into your love question.
My love
We have a question
question.
in the chat room.
Yes, Jennifer Allison would like to know exactly when did Janus start in San Francisco?
It started in 73, maybe late 72. And Cynthia Slater ran it by herself until about mid-74 when she burned out and didn't want to do it anymore. And at that point, it became a democracy instead of a dictatorship.
But you were one of the first people
Yeah,
on.
I was on the first board of directors in
Yay.
in 74.
Wow.
35 years ago, I guess? Yeah. Spooky stuff.
That-
Spooky.
yeah, but all the information that you know, and I mean, this is history in the making, and that's why I wanted to have you on my show, was because I really wanted to hear about the history, and I want to talk a little bit more about his love. I mean, we can't forget that one.
Anyway,
So who was this
I
person?
fell in love.
We don't need names.
With a guy named David, who was a college professor here in Los Angeles. He had flown up to San Francisco to play with my roommate, and that's how I met him. And we actually fell in love the day we met. I never believed in love at first sight until that night.
Wow.
That was July the 12th, 1976.
And how long were you with him?
9.5 years.
It's a long time.
Yeah,
It's a long time.
yeah.
Was he in the BDSM lifestyle?
Yep, he was.
A top or a bottom?
A bottom.
Bottom? Wow. So you've seen so many changes going on in this whole community. I mean, we've only got like a few more minutes talking before we get into our commercial, and I really want to I got so many
Well,
questions.
get talking, girl.
I do. I just like,
Open that mouth. Open that mouth.
just he's,
Let me hear them questions.
So you served on the first board of
did,
Janus.
yes.
And how many people were serving on the board at that time? I mean,
Oh, let's see. I'm trying to remember Jim Kane's living room the night that we did that.
It's amazing it was in the living room. That to me is amazing.
Well, we met in people's homes. Now and then we were able to get public spaces for really big classes. But mostly we taught classes and had meetings in people's living rooms.
What about play parties? Where did you guys have play parties? Did you
Didn't have play parties.
Didn't have play parties?
Didn't come till much later.
So you did almost all private play?
Yeah.
This isn't so like fun. I'm sorry.
It was a ball. It was a ball.
So
I mean, in the gay men's world, there were stand-up sex clubs, but not very many, and you couldn't do BDSM in those settings.
stand-up sex clubs, what are those? I'm serious.
Well, let me see. Imagine a facility where you walk up to a window and you pay an admission charge. You are admitted into a space that is designed to facilitate erotic encounter. Little mazes and
Glory holes?
rooms, glory holes, yeah, sure. There were a few places like that in San Francisco at the time. And every major city has such places for gay men now.
See, that fascinates me because I've been in the swinging community. And the first time I ever went to a party at a swinging community or a swinging house, a woman walked out of a room and she says, "I sucked 36 cocks tonight." And my mouth went.
Because your mouth was jealous or what? It opened up?
It just never occurred to me.
That what? That it was possible to suck 36 dicks in a night?
Yeah.
Oh, listen, there are gay men that would...
Put that to
That
shame.
doesn't even register. 36 is nothing in an evening.
But that's when we could do it. I mean, I'm in your generation.
No, you're not.
Yeah, I am.
How old are you? I love it.
57.
Really?
Yeah.
Speaking of the microphone, 57.
57.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was, during the hippie generation, and, I would have loved to be at Haight-Ashbury during the 60s.
I don't think you would have.
No? Mm-mm. I was because it was cool.
It was, the funny thing about looking back is we have a tendency to edit the unpleasant features of the past out. We conveniently forget about what wasn't cool about the past. And so, and you make a perfectly good point when you offer a perfectly good example when you talk about Haight-Ashbury. Well, Haight-Ashbury has this kind of glorified mythos that surrounds it, that encourages us to believe that it was all fabulous and all wonderful. And the truth of the matter is that it was not all fabulous and all wonderful. And if you talk to the people who founded the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic, they will tell you how frequently people came in with drug overdoses and horrible STD infections and all kinds of, you never sort of think about the seamy side of what those places were like. And the fact of the matter is that it was a balanced experience. There were a lot of cool things about it.
Yeah.
And that's the part that we glorify and memorialize, if you will. But there was a lot of ugliness and a lot of tragedy and a lot of sadness about that. People OD'd and died in that place more frequently than probably any other neighborhood in San Francisco.
Wow.
But of course, it's not convenient to remember that part.
Well, we had Plum Street in Detroit. It was supposedly the equivalent of Haight-Ashbury, but of course it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was, it was downtown Detroit. And, we did a lot of drugs. And a lot of people did overdose on drugs. And
So you were a Motown girl?
yeah, Motown. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I was born in St. Clair Shores, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
See, we know where I was born. We didn't got to talk about where he's born. But you know what? We've got to take a break. We're going to come back, and we've got lots of more questions. And if you're in the chat room, please call us at 323-272-3536, and we'll be right back with my wonderful guest again.
See you in a bit.
We'll be right back.